Welcome to a wet and wild sunrise safari. And we heard lions calling as we're prepping the vehicles. And we've caught up with the missing Nkuhuma and a Birmingham Boy who are busy with their honeymoon at the moment. So unfortunately we just missed them mating, but they are still mating. You can see the male looking a bit bedraggled, his hair slightly out of place on his mane due to the constant rain that's been falling through the night. So it is raining now. Fortunately, it's not hard enough to prompt us not to go out. We will keep you updated. Hopefully, we are able to stay out for the full sunrise safari, although we're not going to be seeing much of a sunrise this morning. So for the first little bit, you're going to be stuck with me. Jamie will be out a little bit later. The car is not quite as waterproof as ours. So sitting next to mating lions live in the African bush. And my name is Brent Leo Smith. Welcome. Isn't this exciting? I've got dangerous Dave on camera. Jamie and Jeandre will be out hopefully a little bit later. And we have Louise and Geraldine in final control. And of course, the ever-present tech department in case something goes wrong. Now let's move forward a little bit. Hello, big boy. I do have male lions in the rain. I always look slightly upset. So they're going to mate on average every 15 minutes. Sometimes a bit sooner. I think we are getting towards the end of the mating cycle. They have been mating now for 3 or 4 days, and that's generally about as long as it goes on for. You can see she's very alert. I think she's looking for the rest of her pride. Look at that. It really doesn't look like she's enjoying this. The rain has made his mane flop, almost to the middle parting. He almost looks like a bit of a nerdy lion this morning. You can see there's some mud on the side of his face. And here you can see all the moisture sitting in that mane. It's amazing how these lions' manes have developed since we've been watching the Birmingham Boys. You can see he's on his way to having quite an impressive head of hair, so to speak. Of course, I can't compete since I had a haircut, but I know the feeling of having wet hair in the rain. Fortunately, I've got my cap on, so it might stay dry for a little bit at least. Calling. You see here little barred owlets calling. He's going to have a snooze. So, as in with leopards, the majority of the mating is initiated by the females. And, unlike leopards, the males will actively follow and seek out females who are in estrus, whereas in leopards it's very much the other way around. The ladies will actively go look for males. And you can see now, especially with the wet, those very distinct little white or lighter colored patches around the eye that help them catch as much ambient light at night as possible. The lions can see about 8 times better than us in the dark. Considering how little we can see in the dark, it's a lot. Oh, there's an elephant screaming in the distance. Wow. Fiery necked nightjar. You see that almost like he's been bejazzled, glittering out of his mane, all the little water droplets sparkling in the lights. Hoping they're going to roar while we're sitting here in the early morning drizzle. You can definitely see that nice black spot on his cheek from where he's been sleeping in the mud. A very good morning to Kathy in Washington. We do apologize. You see in the top corner of your screen there's a little black spot on the last day to move it. Now it's just a rain cover. There you go. Kathy is wondering, how do I identify the lioness as part of the Nkuhuma pride? So lions, unlike leopards, are not going to move out of their territory to mate. And the fact that we've only been seeing 4 together is how I would immediately assume that this is part of the Nkuhuma pride. Right in the heart of Juma. And the Nkuhumas have been around this area for a lot of the time over the last couple of weeks. And as I say, I think after initiating the mating, she's gone. It's coming towards an end. And I think she's looking for the rest of her pride. So if we're lucky, fingers crossed, we might still get a bit of roaring this morning. And hopefully her roaring might set his off. And you'll hear he's got a slightly, or maybe not slightly, but a deeper roar than the lioness. Although it is very difficult to tell the difference.
Brent for Jamie.
Yeah, there's Jamie. Morning, Jamie. I've located a mating pair of lions on Gallagher shortcuts. Copy. So we're going to watch this behavior now. So when they do mate again, it is going to be initiated by the female. James Richard is wondering if it's the same BBoy that was spotted on Arathusa yesterday. Well, James, I'm not sure. As far as I'm aware, there were no Birmingham spotted on Arathusa yesterday. If you're watching their Facebook accounts, generally those are a few days behind, so it's not updated daily. And I don't think this particular lion was spotted on Arathusa. I think these two have come through from the east, from Torchwood, where they were found yesterday. Jim in Washington would like to know what wet lion smells like. Well, Jim, I can guarantee you it smells slightly worse than a wet dog. Lions are quite smelly creatures at the best of times. But of course, with a bit of wet, they do smell quite damp. I'd say it's like wet dog times 10, with a touch of decay. Of course, they eat lots of smelly things. And it is very good hunting. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Female initiates, see the face rub. No, don't go behind us. That's very rude. Sorry, Dave. Now, you can definitely see it towards the end of the mating. Due to the fact that it was very aggressive. At the beginning, it's quite a lot more violent than that, but now towards the end, the barbed penis isn't having quite the same effect as it does in the beginning. So she's not jumping back, biting and snarling at him. And as a cat mating goes, that was quite tame. So for those of you who didn't know, almost all cats have a barbed penis. So especially at the beginning of mating, it's quite painful for the lioness. And it's one of the reasons male cats, lion, leopard, domestic cats, will bite the nape of the female's neck. It's actually to stop her turning around as he disengages, because it can be quite painful. And quite often the females will turn around and give the male a good swat, and he disengages. So at the rest of her pride, we're heading quite deep into Arathusa when we left them last night. Of course, it's been raining through the night, so we're not going to be off-roading much at all. And hopefully these lions do stay close to the road. So I'm going to ask Final Control if they could check the weather station, see how many millimeters of rain we had last night. She's not getting in the way. So even though it's rained quite constantly through the night, it hasn't rained much. So not even a full millimeter of rain. I think there's something wrong with the weather station, because I went to bed last night, it was raining quite hard, and you can see the puddles that weren't there yesterday. I think it's definitely been more than 0.2 millimeters, but definitely I'd say less than 5. Cheryl in California is wondering, when lions are mating, do they hunt and eat together? Like a lot of things, when they are mating, that's about all they're really focused on. So there's not much hunting apart from the odd opportunistic hunt that happens, but generally they will mate, and you can, just mate, and you can see, oh, he's quite hungry, and so is she. I can't see where she is now. Yeah, she's going off-road. Fortunately for us, there is a power line up ahead that has a road underneath. While we move around, to try and catch up with these lions again. Let's go say good morning to Jamie.
And what a wonderful start that is to the morning. Good morning to all of you. Now that is very impressive. Lions every day for the last 2 days, lions every drive. And nice to see that there is another mate, or the mating pair have decided to make their way onto Djuma. Now I'm going to be checking the southern boundary. Well, that's my plan anyway, to see if there's any sign of the Nkuhumas wandering around or any other lions. Maybe we can figure out where those two decided to pop onto the property from. In the meantime, I just want to check with Brent that he doesn't need help relocating those two and staying with him. I know that block of old. It is a very thick, very densely vegetated block. I just want to double check that he doesn't need some help there. Brent.
Anyway.
Brent, I just wanted to double check that you don't want some help relocating or staying with them.
No, I've still got them there on the power line, just lying up in the quarries.
Copy that, thank you. And we have rain at the same time, a little bit of drizzle popping down on our heads. I wonder if this is actually going to stay.
Jamie, it might be worth checking towards Sydney and that area. So the rest of the fire doesn't come in. There was some audio towards that direction. I just asked these guys.
Copy that, I'll check the area. Change of plan. Brent said that whilst I was preparing everything for drive, he heard other lions up towards the northwestern corner of the property. And that's actually a very good point. We want to see if the rest of the Nkuhumas have they disappeared off towards Arathusa last night. Might be a nice idea to just check along there, see if they haven't come on. Either way, I'm sure most of you are really keen to see, as am I, whether or not they managed to get a meal last night. Yesterday afternoon and yesterday morning, when we saw the 4 other Nkuhuma females, they were looking distinctly thin and distinctly hungry and restless. Hopefully with this cloudy weather, the dark night and the windy weather, we might be able, or they might have been able to catch something at some point in the evening. We'll keep our fingers crossed and we'll keep checking. In the meantime, Brent is still with the lions, so why don't you jump on the back of his vehicle?
Dave is having a close inspection by a male lion. That thing's taking off his foot from the back of him as he follows the female. Hello, big boy. And if we look beyond him, there's our camp. The majority of us stay. Initially, the female will go in search of the male, but once sorry guys, seems like we're having a bit of a comm issue that you can't hear me. Dave, my mic's got levels. It seems to be working perfectly on our side. We have perfect levels on the vehicle. Are you sure it's not something in final control? So we're going to try and keep up with those lions, and let's go back to Jamie while we do that.
That was a bit quick, and you're back on our vehicle once again. Brent, I think, is just going to sort out some of his sound issues. And every now and again, Jeandre is going to have to give our screen a little bit of a wipe, act as our windscreen wipers for the morning. It's a very gentle rain, but it has been constant since sometime around 8 o'clock last night. And that means that the roads are very, very slippery. I just went up through Philemon's dip and nearly slid back down again. Plenty of water that has slowly landed throughout the night. And this is the kind of rain that is ideal. It's very gentle, very constant, rather than having a downpour that washes away the topsoil, because there's not much vegetation, there's not much grass to hold it in place after the drought we've been experiencing. So to have this gentle rain is exactly what we need. Yes, it's late in the season, but it will stave off the effects of the drought for a while. What it does mean, though, is that it makes tracking a little bit tricky. I think if we check the boundary and there's no sign of the Nkuhumas coming back onto the property, and we've checked around Sydney's, then we'll pay a quick visit to the hyena den, try and figure out where they've moved to. I know that James relocated them within the Albury's Road block. It's exactly what happened last time the hyena den, or the hyena's den there. They kind of moved between about 3 different den sites in termite mounds right next to each other, which is interesting. It's interesting that they do that repeatedly at the same den site. I've never experienced that before working here. Maybe it's also because the cubs are of different ages, but I don't think so. I think it is more just the fact that they have the potential, or they have the opportunity, or they have nice den sites that they can go to and move between. We'll pay a visit to them and get a little bit of a better understanding of the way that the hyenas work between moving from den to den. And we'll see if we can't figure out which one they've decided they want to be in tonight or last night. The one thing about this weather and this light is that it makes tracking fairly complex in terms of spotting them on the ground. The light is exactly in the wrong place, and at the moment Wendy's headlights have sort of been fixed, but they come and go as they will. Luckily we've got lights on the side of our vehicle to keep us going. And a very good morning to Andy and Julia watching in Los Angeles. And they've said that they've noticed more rain than usual, and they were wondering if this is typical for this time of year. And Andy and Julia, yes, to an extent it is. This is what we should have been experiencing all summer. And the fact that it is quite late into March that we've actually got this rain coming through is quite an interesting aspect of the way in which this drought has worked. We're all very grateful that we have had a little bit of rain. It has come probably a little bit too little too late. Nevertheless, something we're always grateful to see. Speaking of things we are grateful to see, the lions are still about and Brent still has them, so why don't you take a look?
So there we go, you can see that turn off to our camp, and the male lion has just strolled past with the lioness, is slightly to his left. They look like they might go visit final control next. There we go. She's popped out onto the road, and there he is. Oh. What has she spotted? Jeandre. But they've spotted her as well. So it looks like she's thinking about attempting, but the Jeandre are very much aware where she is, and he is. They're not exactly being very stealthy lions at the moment. Yeah, you can have a look at the Jeandre. See them there, Dad? Yep. Yeah, watching the lions intently. Well, let's catch up with the lions. Jumped off the road. Oh. She's going after the Jeandre. There, Dad, she's running. She's about to grab one. She's got one. Oh, she nearly got one there. I've lost sight of her. I can just see, oh, there you go. She's so close to grabbing one. She must have been about 1 meter or 2 from that Nyala. Yeah, the monkeys and everything else explode. And I mean, as she walks, you can see, there we go, there's the wall of the camp right behind. Wow, wasn't that exciting, guys? So on the entrance to our camp, we have lions chasing a Nyala. And she sort of tried to sort of say, I'm not really hunting you guys, but I am. And then she charged after them. They didn't even have a chance to alarm call. And you hear the monkeys going nuts. Wow, wow. There we go. So you can see they're both quite hungry. They have been mating for 3 or 4 days, so they probably haven't eaten anything at all. You can see, when it comes to hunting the small stuff, male lion's not your best ally. He's bigger, he sticks out. But it definitely looks like it's the end of the mating session, and they're hungry, so we're going to keep following. As I just said, she does look quite hungry, and Elizabeth in Minneapolis is wondering if she is hungry as her pride mate. Most definitely Elizabeth. Look at that. That's another great photograph. And now it looks like they're going to walk right past final control. So you can see there's the turn off into Riatella and Gallagher, Juma's Lodges, and slightly to the right here we have a pair of lions. So as hungry as they are at the moment, looks like they're going to go past the back end of final control. And I'd recommend that the ladies stay inside. These lions are very hungry. So, as I said, I recommend the ladies stay inside. The lions might change their behavior slightly if they happen to see them. So there we go, you can see final control is there, where that light is. You can see she's almost trying to jog away from him at the moment. Marianne in Arkansas saying, look how dark that male's mane is getting. Where are you going now? Round and round they take me. Hold on. So we've obviously got to be very careful with off-roading after the rain last night. So normally we would just go off behind them, but we don't want to cause any ruts that might damage the soil. The soil is the most important thing out here. Without good soil, you don't have good grass. Without good grass, you don't have lots of herbivores. And without lots of herbivores, you don't have lots of lions. Right. Oh, something spotted them. You have squirrels, alarm calling. impala. Brian in Ohio is wondering, is it true that lions are only successful on the hunt 30% of the time? Well, Brian, 30%, that would be a very successful pride of lions. Most places it's between 12 and 15% of the time that they're actually successful. Well, look at that impala right in front of them. And impala snorting. Far too fleet of foot for the lioness to even consider. I'm not hunting you, but yes, I am strategy. And maybe she'll try it again, who knows? So impala, far more fleet of foot than Inyala. Pacing in the open area of quarantine. Nice cool morning for them. Now, which way next is the question. We want them to stay on the crest where we can possibly off-road. It will all depend on where they go, whether we can follow them. You can see the impala there, alarm calling. Isn't this wonderful, being able to follow lions? Unfortunately, it does look like there is a bit of heavy weather on its way, but we will try to stay with them as long as possible. Looks like she's trying. I'm not hunting you, yes I am. But the impala not falling for it. The Nyala gave it a half a chance, but the impala not even a sniff of a chance. That's what happens when you're the most numerous antelope in Africa, therefore the most numerously eaten antelope in Africa. So as I said, if we look off to the east slightly, you can see some heavy weather on its way. You can see that sort of mist, we zoom in a bit. That's actually rain, and it is coming towards us. But we will try to stay out as long as possible with these lines. Lale in Washington would like to know, do these cats use a lot of energy during the mating process while the male's good to go? Well, they do, but not as much as you would think. So lions mating is quite a quick affair. The whole mating process itself takes at the longest about 10 to 15 seconds, normally about 5 seconds before it's all over. So it is some form of somewhat energy, but generally the males are really good to go most of the time. As I said, this looks like the end of their honeymoon. They look far more concerned with finding a meal than mating at the moment. So Donna in Rhode Island is wondering, would the male help bring down a kill? Most definitely, especially if it was something big like a buffalo. Well, it looks like they're visiting all our houses today. She's now on the path to where Jamie and I live. Here it is, you can see the light. Just looking back over her shoulder at the Impala that's still snorting behind us. Donna, there's a big misconception that males don't hunt, and that's very incorrect. So quite often the males will spend a lot of time actually away from the females, patrolling and protecting the home range, and when they are out there, they will do a lot of their own hunting. So this misconception that males just take food from the females is incorrect. They will if it is available, but they do a lot of their own hunting as well. Charlotte in Port Elizabeth is wondering, once the mating is over, will the lioness return to her pride and the male return to his coalition? At some point, yes, she will definitely return to her pride, even possibly before he will return to the coalition. He might join the pride for a little bit, you never know. They'll move between their different prides at the moment. The Birminghams have the Styx pride, and the Nkuhuma pride is their main two prides. They are heading off the road here, but fortunately it is up on a crest, so we might be able to follow them for a little bit. Seem to have moved away from all the alarm calls. So just stopping for a second, you can see she's sort of listening, assessing what's about. John would like to know how would the other members of this male coalition react to a cub sired by this particular male? Well, John, they would probably treat it very much the same as if it was their own. And one must remember, male lion coalitions often look after cubs that are not theirs. In a lot of cases, almost 50% of the cubs born to a pride are not from the dominant coalition males, but from sneaky males who mate with the lionesses on the side. So they will accept the cub as one of their own, or one of being sired by the coalition, even if it was sired by a lion outside of the coalition. Obviously for them it's sometimes a little bit difficult to tell. Hello, hungry girl. Guys, don't get a fright, but next time we start moving, Dad's just gonna wipe the lens. We've got a clean spot. The safari intern would like to know how many of the Nkuhuma lionesses they have mated so far. Well, it's near impossible for us to say, because quite often a lot of that behavior has happened outside of our Travis area. But I'd probably say all of them. Look at it, she's trying to sneak away from the male. The male's carried on. She's now going in the opposite direction. She's watching him as he disappears like that. So mating's definitely over. She's watching him disappear, and she's sneaking off. Oh, lady, trouble. Oh, he's been spotted by something. Oh, and he's just spotted her sneaking off. I think the game is up. She nearly got away with it. And he's changed. Has he changed his direction? Is he coming back? There he is. There's that little orange tuft there. He's now stopped. He's now stopped. Oh, she realizes the game's up. She's walking back to him, realizing he's probably going to follow her anyway. Mark's just commented, he says, this is the longest I've ever seen a lion walking without stopping for a nap. And they are capable of bouts of great energy and walking, but as I said, it obviously doesn't happen too often. Just trying to see where they're going. James is asking, how do the lions compare in size to a German Shepherd? Well, they're much larger, James. To give you an idea, that lioness probably weighs around 110 or so kilograms, and that male's probably just under 200 kilograms. A very big German Shepherd would be lucky to weigh 40 kilograms. And a German Shepherd would be much lower than a lioness's shoulder. Let me just zoom in on there, quickly on that lioness. So I would say a German Shepherd probably comes up to about there. So I would say a big German Shepherd is not even half the size of a small lion. Jamie. What's your current position? Oh, she's just gone after a Stenbock. Stand by. The Stenbock jumped up right in front of her. Where's the male? Just you need to see one of them, at least. See the male. Okay. We just have to listen. So the Stenbock jumped up right next to her and she just shot. The male was over here in the thicket somewhere. She ran off here. Jamie, they are moving through the block between Twin Dams and Philemon's. It's slightly skewed towards the Twin Dam side. If you'd like to make your way into the area and just maybe check around Twin Dams, I think I might have lost them. Okay, we're just going to check here. She just exploded into action. Just stop and listen again for another second. Okay, so we're going to try to find these lions again, and while we do that, let's jump on with Jamie for a little bit.
Once we have checked Sydney's dam, then we're actually going to go and give Brent a hand in terms of relocating those animals. It's always tricky when you're trying to follow them off-road. We'll see where they decide to end up, and it's always a possibility, actually, that the female's on her way to meet up with the rest of the pride, if they are in that area. I just want to check Sydney's dam first, have a look and see if there are any of them around there. and at the same time see what other things we can find as well. At the moment, most of the animals are not having to walk or cover enormous distances to get to water in the same way that they were 2 weeks ago. There's plenty of it around, and puddles on the ground. Oh, this road is washing away as well. And incredibly slippery. And Eric, who is watching in New York, was wondering, is this the lioness that we've been missing and that Brent has now found, mating with the Nkuhumas, mating with the Birmingham Boys? I'm just looking at where this road is washed away. Look at that trench. Eric, yes, the Nkuhuma lioness has been absent because she's been mating with the Birmingham Boy. She was on Torchwood originally when we first heard that she was with the Birmingham Boys mating, but she's moved across in this direction, probably in response to the calls of the rest of the pride. But it's wonderful that she decided to pay us a visit. Let's just try and navigate this road. One of those things that requires constant maintenance on a reserve like this. Now, usually in a rainy season, there would be certain roads that we absolutely would be completely unable to drive. And this section could well be one of them, or could well have been one of them. Not, of course, that we are complaining in any way. It's still wonderful to have the rain. Oh, we've got tracks. Jeandre has just spotted some tracks in the road. Hyena. But you can see how tricky it is to actually spot and see tracks in this light. That's an easier patch where they've dug deeper, where the soil is soft. Now, when you're looking at first impressions of a track like that, you can see almost immediately, in theory you can see almost immediately, that they are paws, they have toes and back pads. But what immediately said to me, hyena, is they walk almost in a way that is turned out. And I can show you what I mean by that. Let me just jump out and demonstrate. As soon as I'm able to untangle myself, there we go. So if we have a look at the tracks, and I'll stay here, just so that I don't go too far away from the vehicle. Hyena walk like this, almost. And in this case, it's a hyena coming down the road from the den site towards Sydney's Dam, so walking like this. So the front foot always falls like this. So it falls turned out. Let's say that's the front left foot. The back right foot lands just behind it, facing in the opposite direction. So you get tracks that point like this, and then like this, going down the road. It's the clearest way I can demonstrate to you in this light. Left front, back right, right front, back left. That's surprisingly confusing to talk about. And then it continues on like that. So when you're trying to track animals and you don't want to stop and try and track every hyena, which I have to admit would be a really interesting exercise, but it would be almost completely futile, and that's just because of the distance that the animals are able to cover. Sorry, everyone. Here we go. Collecting spider webs as we go along. There's a herd of something over at Sydney's Dam. Let me just make sure that my door is shut. I do have a tendency not to shut the door and then to almost fall out. I'll investigate. It looks like it might even be our wildebeest herd. Yes, it is our wildebeest herd. And I'm pretty sure it's the same one that we see on quarantine. They're very far away. This is Sydney's Dam. So it is north of our Traverse area. We can't cross and get closer. I'm pretty sure that is our wildebeest herd that we watched on quarantine. There's also some waterbuck and one little baby waterbuck that is scampering about on the right of your screen. Overjoyed. Look at it go. Can almost hear it saying, "Look at me, Mom, look what I can do." Maybe to the other waterbuck calf there, showing off. It's in this lovely cool weather that you see baby antelope playing. It's one of those special things, and one of the things that endears animals to us so deep. Look at it go. Where are you going? Up over the damn wall. Don't go too far. Definitely not something you want to do. You don't want to disappear from Mom. And look at our wildebeest calves on your screen as well. Also now joining in, or partially joining in the game, in the scamper. Look how big they've got. Where are you going, little waterbuck? Oh, be careful. You never know when there's crocodiles at the water. A little bit more caution. How amazing is that little waterbuck has such an instinct to stay away from the water's edge until it's safe to, or until Mom has checked that it's safe to go and drink. The wildebeest teeming down. And you can see the weather and the skies are heavy. It's actually not raining a huge amount, but the clouds are incredibly low. It's a beautiful morning. I actually really, secretly really enjoy weather like this. It's very atmospheric. The wildebeest approaching the water's edge. We know that there are a couple of small crocodiles in this dam, probably too small. Look at the waterbuck go. They're playing, chasing each other. Now accompanied by, or about to be accompanied by chaperones. There we go. Moms have caught up. It's like watching toddlers trying to catch up with them. But yes, we do know that there are some smallish crocodiles within this dam. There's about 3 of them from what I've heard. I haven't been able to get close enough to investigate personally. But there's always the possibility of a larger croc moving in from a different area. They can cover miles and miles at night and over land. And they're not restricted to just one dam in one area. That's why there's this instinct. Oh, skip, jump. The wildebeest. There's this instinct to be cautious when approaching water. The last thing you want when you go for your morning drink is a sudden shock. The crocodile launching itself out of the water. Excuse me. And watching a scene like this with the misty rain, Survey was wondering how would we describe the temperature and the humidity. So it's 24 degrees centigrade, which is 79 in Fahrenheit. Sorry, 75 in Fahrenheit. And it's definitely not chilly. In fact, it's actually fairly muggy. And the humidity makes it, if I could describe it as sticky, would probably be the best description I could give you. But at the same time, a relief from the high temperatures that we've experienced in the last few months, which is why the gambling animals that you're watching head towards the dam are so full of excitement. It's nice and cool for them, and the youngsters can play and run without getting too hot. There's a wonderful, we describe this on a fairly regular basis, the petrichor smell of the earth after rain. But what we're also getting through now, because it has been a week of almost constant dampness, is the scent of summer slowly returning that I feel I've actually really missed this year. The flowers are starting to give off their scents. The potato bushes named because they give off a smell identical and indistinguishable from cooking potatoes. They don't taste like cooking potatoes, but they smell like them. The flowers give off that scent. And then there's the damp, there's a word for it. It's the smell of decay of plant matter. that is one of my favorite things about, summer. It's the, what is it called? Humus smell. I'm sure you know what I mean, though, that constant dampness to the air, and the fungus is giving off a scent as well, and then rotting damp wood. And that doesn't sound like the most pleasant description I could give you, but actually it really is. It's a summer smell. The starlings chirping away. And the waterbuck and the wildebeest having a wonderful time. See how quick that drink was. You see how quick that drinking session actually was, and how nervous the animals are in an open section like that. One, of course, is to do with the lack of cover that they have in terms of hiding away from predators. Usually you'll find that animals prefer to approach, when you've got a dam system like this and you've got a nice open clearing, they prefer to approach from a section where there's vegetation that they can move through and use as cover. In this particular area, they've cleared most of the vegetation. The animals have, I mean, not necessarily people. Well, I imagine that people had a say in it as well. But you can see how overgrazed it is just from the pressure of the drought. It makes the animals feel a little bit insecure, particularly in this weather. But most importantly, they're a bit concerned about the possibility of crocodiles. And Norm was asking about the distances that crocodiles can travel, and whether or not I've ever encountered one moving through the bush looking for a new area to move to. Norm, I've never encountered one moving through the bush, although that I think would be an incredible sighting to have. I have moved from a dam where a dam that I've been watching for up to 2 years, and all of a sudden there's a 3 meter, 4 meter, and by that I mean about 9 feet, 12 feet crocodile sitting in the puddle overnight. It's an incredible thing that they are able to cover kilometers and kilometers. And then, of course, there's also the fact that it's very difficult to fence a river. It's next to impossible, actually, to fence a river. The crocodiles can come and go as they please. They'll move through the river systems and pop out the other side, which sometimes puts them in risky situations if they move outside of conservation areas. Of course, where we're sitting, we've got so much unfenced land that it's not that much of a problem to deal with. I think we've had a wonderful time at Sydney's Dam, but I do know that Brent wanted some help. The last few times we have, or a couple of times previously that we've sat at Sydney's Dam, the wild dogs have just come sprinting across with absolutely no warning, which is always an exciting moment for most of us. As you know, we all get very excited when we see wild dogs galloping across an open area. But you have a question about what would happen if that occurred right now. So if wild dogs came bounding over the wall and went for the wildebeest or the waterbuck, and the fact that they are larger than their normal prey selection, what would occur? I've seen wildebeest, and I've seen waterbuck, and I've seen zebra. All three of those animals, I've seen them chase wild dog before, or band together. And what they'll do is they'll band together, put their babies in the middle, and actually fend off the wild dogs and try to chase them away. That being said, with this many youngsters, it's distinctly possible that the wild dogs would be able to grab one of them on the move, be able to sneak around. Wild dogs, of course, being so much faster and more nimble than something like a lion. They'll probably chase them. And I think on that note, since our wild dogs haven't appeared, I'm going to move on and start making my way back towards that area with the lions. Let's see what other wondrous things we can find you. Mind the stump. It's lovely to experience this cool and damp weather and to see the ground as saturated as it currently is. But Susan would like to know, to what extent has this rainfall actually had an effect on the drought? Susan, we're still in the worst drought that we have been in the last 100 or so years. The last drought that could even be considered an equivalent was in the early 90s. So the amount of rain that we've received, I would guess at, and I'll confirm numbers once our rainy season is complete, but I think that we probably roughly come up to still under 200 mils this rainy season. Our average should be about 450 to 500, depending on whether or not it's a good year, but that's the rough average. Now, either way, in this rainy season, and we are right at the end, this is the sort of the last ditched attempt at the sky dropping moisture down upon us. We just go past this gentleman so we can move on. Hello. Oh, it's still, as I said, it's still less than half of what we should have received. And the fact that last year we probably had not quite as little rain as we did this year, but we probably had about 250 odd mils last year. It's a cumulative effect. So whilst this rain is marvelous, the timing means that we've come right at the end of our growth season for the vegetation. So whilst we look at an area like this, if we just stop here and we look at the grass that's growing, this grass in this particular place should be at least up to my knees, if not up to my hips, and thick and lush. You shouldn't really be able to see any soil in between it. The fact that it's green is wonderful, and it will definitely help to mitigate the effect that it has on the animals. They've got one last moment to bulk themselves up before the dry season really kicks in. The other aspect, as I spoke about at the beginning of the morning, was the fact that the heavy rain that we experienced, combined with a lack of grass cover, has washed away some of the topsoil. Now, topsoil, as geologists will tell you, is something that takes hundreds of years to develop and to get to the point where it is a healthy system in which the grass and the trees can grow. So the washing away of that topsoil can actually be fairly damaging to the environment. Now, having got all of that negative stuff out of the way, droughts have been coming and going for far longer than we've been experiencing and attempting to manage them. It's an ecosystem that is built to recover. It is built for adaptability, and the animals will do the same. And some of them will struggle throughout the dry season, and some of them may die. The weaker and the older individuals may die, particularly when it comes to bulk grazers. But at the end of it all, you will have an ecosystem that does actually recover from it. It is nice for us to enjoy the rain. It gives us a bit of relief. It gives the animals a lot of relief. They don't have to trek for miles on end to go and have a drink at one of the few water holes that were remaining about 2 weeks ago. They can go and drink in a puddle on the side of the road. They've got plenty of fresh green. Unfortunately, just a little bit too little too late, but not something that we're going to scoff at either. We can still treat it as optimistically as possible, but with a reality check as well at the same time. I just want to get hold of Brent. Give me 1 second, I just want to get hold of Brent, and while I do, Jeandre is going to perform his windscreen wiping service free of charge. Brent. Is there anywhere in particular you would like me to check?
Email chased us Jeandre and went back towards sort of Wilderness junction with Twin Dams. I can't find any tracks coming out. I think I might just go around and check come on a cut line, but just anywhere in this area will be fine. They're still around, it's just where is the question.
Okay, copy that. I'm on Gallagher shortcut now. I'll go check around Ingray Alley that side.
Copy that.
And as we meander our way to go and help Brent out in terms of finding the lions, we had that wonderful wildebeest sighting and watching them and the way in which they approach the water. And the same goes for the waterbuck. Now the question is that learned behavior or is it instinctive? Have the female wildebeest taught their little ones to be nervous around water, or is it something that's built into their system? So Virginia and Kentucky, I have to be honest with you, that is exactly what I was wondering about while I was watching them. And I think it's probably a combination. You watch little antelopes from the moment they are born. Sorry, I got distracted by these little Franklin. And it's actually quite a good example of what I'm talking about in terms of instinct versus nature and nurture. Franklin, of course, being born fully precocial, just like the antelope species, which means that when they enter this world and take their first step towards independence, almost immediately they are capable of running and keeping up with the adults. How much of that is instinct and how much of it is learned from observation? Probably with Franklins, most of that is instinct. But with the wildebeest calves, I think it's probably a combination. Watching mom go and have a drink and the rest of the herd, and seeing how nervous the adults get whilst approaching water probably has an impact on that instinct to observe and to imitate the behavior of the adults. But it's a good question, Virginia, and probably one that doesn't necessarily have an obviously known answer. And speaking of not having an obviously known answer, let's get an update from Brent and find out how his search for the lions has gone.
So those lions have still evaded us. I'm sure they're around still. Just making sure they haven't continued at that high speed of walking. So I'm going to do a big loop around the area where we lost them. Hopefully we'll catch up with them again shortly. But that standbox seemed to jump out right underneath the lioness's nose, and she just took off like a rocket. Now a lion at full speed is about 21 meters per second. So that gives you an idea of how quick they can be. Oh, excuse me. And I didn't see the male run after her, so I'm wondering whether he didn't notice her disappear. So that's why we're going to do this big wide loop again. So Aqua is wondering, when we were driving parallel to the lions, how fast were they going? Their walking speed appeared to be quite quick. That's very observant. This time they walk very, very slowly. The female is actually just trying to get rid of the male, so she's walking quite a bit faster than she normally would. I'm just going to stop and listen for a second. So I think she's hoping that by walking that speed, he's gonna get tired and have a snooze, and she can get away from him. But I'd say probably 9 kilometers an hour around there. Check carefully here, see if you can't see a pug mark. Pug mark, nice big lion paw print in the wet soil. So we might be able to see tracks because it is still quite damp. It just seems to be hanging back a little bit, so good news. But it is still surrounding us. We seem to be in this one little circle of dry. Heather in Washington is wondering whether a lioness will mate with a male even if she knows she's pregnant. Heather, the early pregnancy, she might, in certain circumstances, especially if there's just been a pride takeover, are impregnated with such a short gestation period, and they don't generally mate again. So I'm just looking off into the distance where might have popped out. But Heather, I would call a knowing, and she instinctively knows that she's pregnant. If she's not pregnant, she'll come to estrus again quite soon and mate again. To have a few gremlins in this area, so let's go see what James is up.
Whoopsie daisies. Have a look at why I stopped as suddenly as I did. See if you can spot what I'm looking at. A little head peeking out of the puddles. A terrapin has decided to call this particular puddle home. Similar to what we were saying about the crocodiles, that they can cover tremendous amounts, far more ground than you really expect them to. That is why it's so important, even just say an hour or two after the rain, when the puddles have grown, to go through them incredibly slowly. Now, I'm going to move about on the left-hand side because I saw this gentleman, but I have never seen a squashed terrapin in dried up puddles before. And that's because most guides know to go through incredibly slowly through the puddle. And what that does is it gives the terrapin an opportunity to surf away from the tires while they do that. So what we'll do is we'll move away on the left-hand side of this little guy or girl. Or will we? Which way are you going to go? Are you going to go into the middle? Where would you like to be? Just a very gentle, very slow movement. And the opportunity to surf away on our waves. And that's something crucial to remember. And just in case you were worried or wondering, I'll show you exactly what I mean, and I'll show you that terrapin is still absolutely fine, as a demonstration for those of you who are concerned. Here he is, right in the middle. Safe and sound, and shifting over the mud puddles. Here he goes. One of those small aspects of the rain that doesn't necessarily occur to you if you're unfamiliar with the bush, but it's so important in terms of reducing our impact on the environment that we're in. And we do have an inevitable impact. Even the production of roads is, in its own way, something that impacts on the ecosystem as a whole. It's a nice, easy place for water to run through because there's no plant cover, there's no trees, there's no root systems to hold topsoil. Which is why, as we travel along, many of you may have seen what look like speed bumps in the road. They're not speed bumps, they're known as bolsters, and we'll come to some soon. So bolsters are little bumps to stop the water and the soil runoff, and next to each bolster, the managers of the reserve will have dug mitre drains next to them. So there we go. Here's a nice example of one. It's a drainage system that allows water runoff. Standing by, and returns the water and the topsoil back off the road and to where it should naturally occur. Just quickly updating Brent. Gallagher shortcut.
I've relocated them on Blackstream on Hamlin track approaching Terrapin. So if you want to come here, you might have signal.
Copy that, or they're mobile.
Confirm.
Okay, I'm on my way. Alrighty, so Brent has relocated the lions.
Okay.
And we're going to go as quickly to them as possible. He doesn't have any signal in the area where the lions are, so we're keeping fingers crossed that I do. And we'll be able to go and join them. We're doing a minor Ferrari safari because they are mobile, and they're mobile very close to the Mawati. And that's an area where they very often disappear down, only to lie down somewhere underneath the guari bush and vanish from sight. So we're doing a minor Ferrari safari. It's not quite the Ferrari safari we would do for wild dogs. So a little bit more tricky in the rain. I want to drive too fast through puddles, or indeed drive too fast and make ruts in the road. Let's keep our fingers crossed. I'm sure that we will have a signal when we get there, and we'll be able to switch out with Brent. He can go and go and look for other animals. Sorry, little Inyala. Just making sure Taxon is on his way as well. That will be something really exciting for his guests who got to see the Nkuhumas yesterday. To be able to see the 5th member and a male lion at the same time will be very exciting for them. It's one of those special gifts about living in the bush. As we drive past our camp and we head towards the lions, we started off the morning with lions right outside where we live and sleep at night and live during the day. Now that is a special privilege that I don't think any of us ever take for granted. Jeandre and I were just chatting about our elephant friend, the gentleman with the piercing in his ear, and the cheeky, curious attitude towards vehicles. He spent his evening outside the DRC, the main camp, where most of the WildEarth staff live.
Okay, I'll copy that.
And the area is permeated by the smell of elephant in must. Playing dodge the millipede at the same time. Kevin Catfish to chat about our friendly elephant. Overly friendly, some might say. Sorry, I have to show you how heavy the sky, heavy and laden the sky is. It's incredible. Look at that. All that rain. Also listening to alarm calls around final control. Beautiful weather. Unfortunately, we have no time to stop and stare for now. I just wanted to double check as well that those guinea fowl were not making a fuss about a leopard wandering through. They weren't, they're just shouting at each other. But yes, talking about our gentleman elephant, Kevin Catfish was wondering if he was screaming last night at all. And Kevin, I didn't hear him. My guess would be, if there were elephants talking last night, my guess would be that it was probably because of him, but not him personally. I think it was probably the male harassing some of the elephant herds that might have been moving through the area. So if you heard screaming elephants on the Jeandre Dam camera, very often those high-pitched vocalizations or those loud trumpeting sounds, very often those actually come from the juvenile elephants, so the young calves. And they either do that, they can do that when they're upset with each other, they can do that when they're upset with their mums. If their mother refuses to feed them when they want to stop and suckle, they very often have tantrums. And those tantrums get worse and worse as the mother starts to wean them off her milk. They have what's known, and hyena cubs do it as well, they have what's known as weaning tantrums. Just like human babies, they don't always appreciate the whole process of growing up. So that might have been what you were hearing, or it was the females being harassed by the musk bull. And of course, he is in musk, so his testosterone levels are through the roof at the moment. He is very heavily in musk. He's secreting urine, very, very pungent smell, and he's secreting heavily from his temporal glands. And that in turn, whilst it doesn't necessarily put them in a bad mood, it does cause them very often to spend a bit more time attempting to get lucky with one of the females. Now, unless the female is in estrus, it doesn't always work that way. It seems as though Brent's signal's popped up, so while it is up and while I make my way there, let's jump over to him.
So we're hoping that Jamie gets here soon, because if we move, the gremlin invades. So hopefully Jamie will have better signal in this area. But while we're static, and the lions also, we are able to bring you these incredible images live from the middle of Africa. So as you can see, she obviously did not catch the steenbok. It evaded her. Good morning, Bud, in North Carolina. Bud is wondering, is this lioness trying to return to the pride? To me, it looks like she might be. I think the mating is all but done. And so she's trying to almost shake the male at the moment. And Bud also asked, how far is she from where we left the rest of the Nkuhumas last night? She's quite far, Bud, probably 3 or 4 kilometers, and they were heading in the complete opposite direction to what she is at the moment. That's not to say they couldn't have changed direction during the night and moved back this way, but I think they still might mate a few more times today before she successfully manages to shake the male. But she's now lying down almost in the mud. There's a little puddle behind her, nice and cool. Sorry guys, it's going to be on the Game Drive channel for a second. Tax. Zingala na Terrapin. So I can hear Jamie arriving. So the lioness is lying there. The male is behind us, but I'm scared to move the vehicle in case we do lose signal again. Dave's going to swing around. Wheel. Having a look at Jamie and Jeandre. So it seems like Jamie's signal is far more stable in this area. So we're going to leave her with the lions and head off to see what else we might be able to find.
Here we go, we have arrived, and what a glorious view this is. Isn't it amazing how much darker the Birmingham Boys' manes have gone since when we first started seeing them, when they were first seen in Big Cat Week in 2014 with Hayden and Peter, to their takeover a couple of months ago, and to look at them now, isn't that absolutely incredible? The way in which they have grown and darkened.
Maybe they made it about 5 minutes ago, so I think there might be more just now.
Copy that, thanks. Brent's heading off to find you other things and a stable signal.
Hey, from Ephraim.
I did just get an update, so bear with me 1 second. I just want to listen to
Has there been any updates on Brula in the east?
the updates on the Game Drive channel. There's the female lying at a very comfortable distance away from the male. And that update, by the way, on the Game Drive channel was simply that Karula is still denning to the south of our boundary in Little Gowrie with her cubs. We think that the reason that she's there, just to finish off with that update, the reason that she is there is due to the fact that there's been so much hyena activity around her regular den sites around Voyatella. With this hyena clan flourishing as it is, and she's decided that it would be safer to move her cubs further to the south and away from their core home territory. Updates on the other updates from the Game Drive channel is that whilst the Nkuhumas haven't been found, the sticks were last seen with one of the Birmingham Boys. The 3 pregnant sticks females were last seen with one of the Birmingham Boys on Nkoro. Morning, Tax. Morning, Van. Just saying a good morning to Taxon. Goodness, the flies are terrible after this rain. And Fan, his wonderful tracker, as well as the guests on the back. Just good manners. Now, it'll be interesting to see. You can usually judge... Oh, which way is taken? Is he going to stop there? Yes, okay. Well, that's fine. That's absolutely perfect with us, because usually when lions are mating, it's generally the female, same with all big cats, it's generally the female that initiates the approach. She will probably come to him. Although it always amuses me how, once they're finished, how the distance that they spend away from each other. I'm just going to take the opportunity to take off my jacket. It's a bit muggy and warm now. Natasha, who is watching all the way in Ontario. Very good morning to you, Natasha. Sorry, you keep flicking flies away from me. I haven't quite developed the skill of ignoring them. Natasha would like to know, with this female, would she mate again with the Birmingham male for the next breeding season? And Natasha, that's really interesting, because if this mating is not successful, and strangely enough, I have a feeling that it will be successful, and I'll explain that to you in a moment. But if this mating is not successful for her next estrus cycle, she could end up mating with any one of the 5 Birmingham Boys. Generally, male lions don't necessarily have a specific hierarchy. Yes, the bigger one will probably have the best access to the females, but fairly regularly, the female will mate with the different ones from the coalition, which makes complete sense. Or indeed, Natasha, she could actually, if a nomadic male wanders in, or one of the males from a neighboring territory, she could actually end up mating with him as well. It's the same approach that leopards follow, which is to mate with as many different males as possible within their area. And what that means is that if they do ever encounter one of those males when they have their cubs, the chances of those cubs being killed by a male is drastically reduced. What will be really interesting is to see if the Birmingham Boys in their youth are actually accomplished fathers, or if those cubs particularly with the sticks, are going to run a bit of a risk. What I mean by that is it happened with the Mapogos, and it's happened with many young male lion coalitions. Initially, when their first cubs start being born, their instincts get a little bit confused, and there's a chance that they could kill them. That's why the females wait for so long before going into a true estrus cycle. They wait a couple of months, and I don't think it's a deliberate decision, it's a biological decision, but they go into false estrus in those first few months after a takeover by other males, just to give the males a chance to settle in and to feel more comfortable before they expend the resources that their bodies need to produce in order to create offspring. And how atmospheric is this? The sun breaking through the clouds, light starting to build up, birds chirping away. And one of Africa's most iconic animals on our doorstep. And every now and again, even though it is a warm and muggy morning with a bit of rain, every now and again we're getting the first hints of winter on its way. Just that little chill first thing in the morning, sometimes in the middle of the night, the crispness to the wind, the leaves starting to change color, and of course the days shortening, all boding towards the dry season. And Sarah, who's watching in Austin, was wondering specifically about the impact of winter on the lions and the way in which they hunt, and whether or not the colder temperatures will help prey or hinder them. And Sarah, what it means for the lions, first of all, as you know, they overheat very, very easily. So the cooler the temperatures, the more time they can spend moving about and hunting. But most importantly, what will assist them, and it's going to be particularly emphasized after the dry season that we've had, is going to be the lack of rain. What the lack of rain means is that the animals have to move around specific water points, and they have to regularly cover those distances in order to have a drink. So a herd of buffalo, for example, will be restricted as to where it can go. They'll have to cover huge distances because they'll have to move further and further in search of food, but either way, they're going to have to keep moving back towards those water sources. So for the lions, it means that they don't have to search as far and wide as they would normally have to for prey. Now, the regular viewers will actually probably have observed how the numbers of general game that we've seen on our live drives in the last week or so has diminished to a degree. And that's because there are so many puddles and nice, comfortable zones in the middle of the thick, dense vegetation where the animals can go and hide without having to come out into the open to make their way to a waterhole. So for the predators, this is going to be a boon. For the prey species, they will be able to see further because a lot of the vegetation will sort of die off. Some of the trees will lose their leaves and the grass will be very low. So they'll have better visibility in terms of spotting lions, but they'll be restricted and they'll be forced to move through areas that the lions would be covering. And I think actually that's why over the last few weeks we've seen the Nkuhumas with such full bellies. And now all of a sudden, it's a combination of coincidence and the rain, now all of a sudden they're looking quite thin and quite hungry. And it's because they're having to search further and further for food. And it's just made it a little bit harder. Now, in theory, any minute now, that female should be approaching the male. It's just a game of waiting. Now, interestingly enough, in the initial stages of their mating, the female approaches the male. Towards the end, it's usually the male that initiates it. So we'll be able to, that's the general sort of circumstance, it's not a rule, but we'll be able to guess a little bit at how long these lions have been mating. I think it's probably somewhere in the region of about 4 days. most of us definitely wondering about the rest of the Nkuhuma Pride, and whether or not, with the weather like it was, whether or not they were actually successful in their mission last night to find themselves some food. Dina was wondering, if they were successful, would we have heard loud noises from the prey? Now, Dina, yes, there's definitely, depending on what they kill, but most of the time, almost every single kill that a lion makes, the animal that they have hunted and caught will make distress calls, whether it be a buffalo or a zebra, anything along those lines will call out in distress. That being said, the amount of distance that those lions could have traveled at any point last night, Brent said they were already on a mission into Arathusa. They could have gone right through Arathusa, they could have popped out in Simbambili, they could have gone to Buffelshoek or to Manyeleti, they could have gone in any direction that they chose to, and they could have covered an enormous distance. So for us, we may not have heard them. That doesn't mean that they weren't successful. They might have not killed close to the Djuma Dam camera, but it doesn't mean that they were not successful just because we didn't hear them. Lions, when they're on a mission, that gentle sloping walk of theirs can eat up the miles throughout the night. He's looking sort of lazily at the female. And speaking about the way in which lions move... Oh, she's up. Never mind, we'll get to this in a moment. Here we go, she's going to initiate the mating. You beautiful girl. And there you go. And that reflex of rolling over onto her side or onto her back, that was a fairly gentle lion mating, although you could hear the low rumbles and growls from the both of them. But that, I wouldn't describe it as lack of enthusiasm, but the way in which she didn't turn around and swat him in the face suggests to me that we're coming right up to the end of their mating cycle. There she goes, rolling onto her back. Most biologists agree that that reflex is a way of assisting in ensuring that the mating is successful and results in fertilization. It's all combined with what is known as the lordosis reflex that she demonstrated when she approached him. You might have heard some of the whining, growling sounds that she was making. And that, of course, I'm sure Brent has touched on it, but that, of course, is the same with all cats. It is a discomfort for her. I'd love to know the biology behind that induced fertilization. We know that she doesn't ovulate until there have been repeated mating sessions, but I would love to know what hormonal, and I've tried to find out, actually. There's a surprising lack of easily accessible information on it. But I would love to know what hormonal practices play a role. And she's up. She's also looking very hungry. She's seen something. That immediate freeze and alert posture. Is she going to go back to her spot, or is she going to continue looking for food? Or is she just moving away from him? He's not that interested in following. She is very beautiful.
Yeah, behind you, okay.
Aqua has suggested the possibility that the lioness is trying to sneak away from the male and has given some advice as to how she might go about that. It's always an interesting thing watching a pair of big cats together, male and female. There's a certain disgruntled air to both of them in this whole scenario. You can see how patchy her fur is around her neck from where he's been biting and grabbing onto the back of it to make sure that she doesn't hurt him. Most importantly, though, I think that empty belly is calling to her. And she wants to get some hunting done before the day gets too hot. You can see the flap of skin around her hind legs. That shows very clearly in a hungry lioness. Now, this drainage line that she's going into is incredibly dense, and so what I'd rather do is actually stay with the... Never mind, male's up. I was going to say I'd rather stay with the male for now. We'll try and stick with them. This drainage line is incredibly thick. Oh boy, yes, you're gorgeous. He's also empty-bellied, that flap of skin running down the middle of his tummy. They're both hungry. They've been preoccupied by other activities, and hunting has taken a bit of a back seat. I don't want to go crashing through the bush after them if they are hunting. We'll keep up with them for as long as we can, and then once they go into the drainage line, we'll try and loop around them. At the moment, she's looking, but she hasn't seen anything. She's not stalking. I just want to update on the Game Drive channel. I think Mike was thinking about making his way here. Did you find anything, girl? Let's just stop here for the moment, see what she decides to do. Have a quick clean. He's just glad she stopped so that he doesn't have to follow her. He can just lie down. I wonder which Birmingham boy this is. I'm sure many of you may know. Please let me know which gentleman it is. Perfect. Thank you, Angie. Angie, watching in Ohio, has just updated me to... She took the question right out of my mouth. Quite literally. This is Birmingham boy number 2, apparently. I mentioned before when we saw him the last time that I think maybe he needs a more thrilling name than number 2, but certainly that works for now. Thank you, Angie. Birmingham boy number 2, the same Birmingham boy that we saw, or that I bumped into the other day. Not literally bumped into, but we certainly gave each other a surprise as I came around the corner and he came out of the bushes at high speed. And we saw him almost right here go and search and dig into that termite mound burrow and pull out the dead warthog. And that was one of the most fascinating sightings to witness, just to see a lion like this digging into a hole, plus the way that he was able to follow the scent as he did to find and locate that dead warthog. An interesting lesson in the way in which their olfactory senses play such a huge factor in the decisions and the movements that they make. The other interesting aspect was the fact that he didn't really feel that keen on eating it. We've got some other vehicles coming in here, so I'm going to have to shift around to make space.
I always be on the radio. Mike, I'm just going to come in behind you as well, eh? Right, copy that, yeah. We'll get there.
Dave and Mike, I'll make space for you. Some other vehicles wanting to come and have a look at them. We'll try and find a nice spot. How shall we do this? Let's think about it carefully. We might have to sacrifice the best view for now, just to allow some of the other vehicles that haven't had a chance to come and view them. As we know, though, generally we have far more time to spend with the animals. So bear with me for now. It's not the world's best view, but it does make space for the other vehicles to come in. I know it's through the trees. And while we glance at him through the leaves, James Richards was wondering a little bit about the biology behind the females knowing somehow that a pride takeover has occurred and their ability to go into a false estrus rather than a true estrus once that has happened. James, it's a really good question, and it's not one that I have an answer to. I don't know how they know or how the biology works behind it. For females with cubs, it makes total sense, because the first action of a male involved in a pride takeover is to kill those babies. And then once that, because she's already had a pregnancy and she's just stopped lactating, it kind of makes sense that her body would know to go into a false, or that her body would automatically go into a false estrus, because it's so soon after a previous pregnancy and lactation. For females like the Nkuhumas, none of whom, as far as we know, were pregnant at the time, it'd be interesting to know if there's another way that they get around that. Just gonna let the other vehicles in. There should be a gap here. Shame. The poor guys driving into the sighting have arrived just at the wrong moment. Those lions were sitting so beautifully out in the open when we first approached. Perfect. Morning, everybody. Good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, good of you.
Good, thanks. They've just mated about 5 minutes ago. Yeah. So, James, I'm not entirely sure exactly how it is that they go about when they haven't lost babies or they haven't been pregnant in a pride takeover. I'm not sure what biology plays a role in their approach. While our lines are flat for the moment, let's get an update from Brent's side, and if anything changes here, he'll be back with me as quickly as possible.
So I decided to come check our western boundary, see if the other Nkuhuma ladies might be out and about. Now, they have now moved further west than I've ever heard of them moving before. They are all the way in beyond Sibambini. They've crossed in towards Ottawa, so probably about 8 kilometers from here, and so probably over 10 kilometers from where those lions we had this morning are. So very, very far in the west. It's unusual, I think. Excuse me. I've only heard of them going around there once before, but not as far as they've gone this time. So very interesting. Wonder why they've moved that far. So I'm hoping we can find some elephants, some very dark elephants after the rain this morning. Wondering how long has that elephant who's got the hole in his ear, he's a bit of a naughty boy, How long has he been around for? Well, I would say he's probably, impala, chasing each other. See if we can catch them. I would probably say he's been around for about 45 years. That's his age. I'm not sure how long he's been around in this particular area. Let's see if we can catch up with the rutting impala.
Just have a look at them through the trees. Now, I'm speaking incredibly softly, not just because of the lions, but also because there are vehicles right next to me and I don't want to disturb their experience. So for now, let's listen to some of the ambient sounds of the bush. The cackling you can hear is the call of the arrow-marked babbler, and of course the ubiquitous Cape turtle dove calling as well. Quick quiz. Have a look at the tree, since we are looking at him through the tree. And let's see if any of you can tell me which particular tree is blocking our view of the lions at the moment. Little opportunity to learn something while we wait for them to get up. Some hints. Have a look at the younger branches and the shape of the leaves. Look at the bark as well. And let's see if you can figure out which particular young tree this is. It's a young one, and it's one that is very commonly found in these drainage line systems. And as Jeandre sort of follows along the younger branches, you can have a look at the main stems as well. And that is where the giveaway actually lies. I'm not going to give you too many more hints though. You can send that through to #SafariLive on Twitter, or you can email through to questions@wildearth.tv. It's damp, which is why the bark is as dark as it is. Right, no more hints. It's an easy one. I think our regular viewers should get it fairly quickly. One of my favorite trees, and I've spoken before about it on Drive and the fact that it was responsible for quite a serious foot injury for a friend of mine. It's not a tree you want to accidentally jump on, or at least part of it. It's also taken on quite an interesting, if we look at the crown as a whole, it's taken on quite an interesting growth form. It is just because it's young. But it's messier than the adult trees. It's an adult tree, certainly, but it is a young one. Here you go. The leaves all upward facing in their own way.
So, just what I was in the mood for. A nice big breeding herd of ellies. There's a nice big cow walking, and there's some tiny babies around, and they really seem to be enjoying this cool weather and all the mud they can play with. No, little one! Having a drink after charging around. And there's a little, almost gang of kids, or below sort of 10 years old. They were charging about when we bumped into them. Hopefully they will be inspired to play again shortly. So definitely taking advantage of all the flush around. Lots of greenery for them to munch on. Hello, little one. So, tiny little Ellie behind there. I'm guessing probably a month or two old, just from what I can see. Following one of the slightly older youngsters, probably closer to 10, 11. Such peaceful creatures. Isn't it incredible? I'm just going to keep quiet for a bit longer and just listen to the different noises as they feed and move around us. Just going to try to sneak forward a little bit to get you a view of that little guy. Oh, look at that. Hello, little one. You can see it's almost been rolling around. It's got some mud on its back. And young Ellies often will roll and get closer to the ground than big ones. You can see playing with the trunk, still learning how to use it. There could be some water in there where there's a hollow from the elephants pushing down a tree. Oh, look, sweetness. Like a little girl. So probably 3, 4, about 15 to 20 elephants in this herd. They are quite spread out. There's some behind us. The majority of them are spread through the bush to our left. I can hear some further away in the bush as well. Right behind you, Dave. There we go. Hello. Just heard this stomping coming past us. Hello, little lady. Young female. So once elephants are adults, they're quite difficult to tell the age of. Not impossible, but it is a little bit difficult. But when they are little, it's a bit easier while they're growing up. And Curtis in Virginia is wondering how much do elephants grow in their sort of first year. So as soon as they're sort of unable to go under mom's belly, it's sort of the signifying fact that they're a year old. So when they're still able to fit under mom's belly, so there's a good example coming up of probably, if we go across to the left here, so over a year old. You can see quite a bit taller. Have a look over here, Dave. No, that's not right. There we go, a nice little diagram to, is that okay?
Yep.
Show elephants' ages. So there we go, that's a yearling. That's about 2 years old, a juvenile there. And you see quite a lot bigger than the tiny one. And then an intermediate, sort of 6 years old, which is quite a few about that age. It's between 6 and 10 in this group. And then a 15-year-old, sort of teenager, and then an adult. Now, this is females. Males are sometimes a little bit more difficult to tell. And there we go. There's a nice way to see the difference in ages. Oh, look, there we go. There's that little boy, probably around a year and a half. Not quite 2 yet, I would say. Margaret says she needs elephants after all that action with the lions. It'll lower her blood pressure. They definitely do have a calming effect. I agree with you there, Margaret.
Yeah, I've got you, Brent.
So a lovely comment from Safari Dean. There's lions mating and baby eddies. This tumor junkie has had his fix. Me too. It is incredible. We are able to spend such wonderful time with these amazing animals. So if go with that update again.
Going north.
Oh. Ephraim, confirm that update again.
Yeah, the guy is from the east. He saw them again now.
Guys, sorry about the heart rate and heart pressure again. I've just got a report that the wild dogs have just crossed into the property. So we're going to leave these alleys for now. Copy. I'd like to also come into that area. I'm on the edge of quarantine at the moment. So hold on to your seats. Let's go see if we can find some wild dogs to get the excitement up. So that's how we do it. Excitement with lions, put it down with elephants, and now let's go see if we can find some wild dogs. So am I going to have to drive quite quick to try and get there? So while we go rushing towards the possibility of the African wild dog, let's jump on board with Jamie, who's still with those lions.
This is such exciting news. We were just talking about wild dogs this morning. Now Brent's on a mad rush, and if anybody can get there in time, Brent can. Wild dogs crossing onto Vuyatela. We're going to stick here with the lions. It gives Brent an opportunity to follow up and relocate them. But we'll also be keeping an eye out because we're not that far from where the wild dogs crossed. And as you know, covering enormous amounts of distance is definitely something wild dogs do exceptionally well. Now that would be an interesting sighting. Wild dogs rushing past lions. Oh, is he going to initiate this time? Here he goes. Our dogs have crossed around Weaver's Nest Road, for those of you familiar with our territory, so about a about 500 meters or so away from where we are. Here we go again. See, he initiated that one. Oh, she's not terribly thrilled with the idea. Ah, all right, if you insist. Goodness, that was definitely some of the most unenthusiastic lions mating I have ever seen. Definitely coming towards the end of that. She barely reacted to his presence. Usually when they first start mating, she'll turn around and swat him in the face. That's why he grabbed her by the back of the neck. She actually didn't even roll over that time. She just got up and moved away slightly. Sure, definitely getting a bit tired of each other's company, I think. What we can do now is we can reposition, and we can get a little bit closer. Now that he's moved, we can go through into this nice open area. And we've got the sighting all to ourselves as Mike rushes off to see if he can relocate those wild dogs. Everybody duck as we go past the mystery tree that is still a mystery. I pricked a bit of it while I was off air, so I will be able to show you. Just want to watch that there. Are we good, Jeandre? So the closest answer so far came from Raisa, who said a red bush willow. It is a relative of the bush willow, Raisa, so well done in that respect. It is not bush willow, however, but it is a relative. Jason has said the shampoo and conditioner tree, or perhaps a continuation of a conversation we've said about the ability of the bush to provide toiletries where possible. We spoke yesterday about the guari bush toothpaste and the leadwood toothpaste. The soapiness of a torchwood or a balanites could be considered to be useful as a soap. Sorry, I'm just listening to sounds behind me. Oh, it's another vehicle. I thought I heard wild dogs, but definitely did not. So no, not a shampoo and conditioner tree. It's a tricky one, and I'll tell you why it's tricky. And one of the other answers was monkey orange. It's not a monkey orange. Whilst a monkey orange does have those spine-like protrusions, Janet, it's not a monkey. Oh, sorry, Janet, it's not a monkey thorn. Monkey thorn has hooked thorns, and it's not quite as, doesn't grow quite as tall as this tree. Let me give you another hint. And I think when you look at this, you might actually get it straight away. Just have a look at the shape of the leaves and the color of the leaves. We were talking initially about guari bushes, and I wanted to compare the colors of the two leaves. The branch that we're talking about, the tree that I'm talking about, is the one that I'm wobbling. And a distinct discolor between the front of the leaf and the back of the leaf, giving it almost a silvery look. And no, it's not a silver cluster leaf. And when I said to you that you don't want to jump on one of these or walk on one of these, I'm talking about this. And this is what sets it apart from one of the things that sets it apart from the acacia family. Do you see the way that the leaves are growing out of these thorns? That is what makes it a spine, a modified branch, rather than a modified leaf that is a thorn of an acacia. And although it doesn't look it, these are incredibly tough and very, very sharp. Can spell instant flat tire. Now, standing on one of these will hurt tremendously. As I said, I have a friend who jumped on one once by mistake. She was jumping down off something, and she was in fact playing with my dog. And it went through the sole of her shoe, or through the sole of her foot, and hit the bone of her foot. And she almost ended up having to have an operation to remove the secondary infection from it. But definitely every solid thorn rather than the acacia thorns. Now, the acacia thorns look terrifying with their white color and their length and the thickness of them, but they're actually quite soft and malleable in the way in which they are designed. So totally different. It is a tricky one, and the reason I asked this particular tree was because it was a youngster, because it's a young tree, and it makes it look completely different from the adult. Now, the bark might have been the giveaway, but because it was dark-colored, I think that is why it's stumping some of you, just because it looks so much darker than it usually does when we show you them. Oh, so many hints. I will tell you one other thing. They get to be enormous. And yes, drainage lines. So not bad guesses at all. I'm just listening with half an ear to the Game Drive channel as they attempt to relocate the wild dogs. And I can even hear through the Game Drive channel, I can hear the odd rev as the various vehicles try and relocate those wild dogs. So exciting. There are at least 3 vehicles working in the area, but we'll keep our fingers crossed. I'm sure that they're going to find them soon. Are you exhausted, you two? Exhausted and feeling slightly antisocial. She keeps putting a little bit of distance between herself and him. Before we got interrupted by one of them getting up, we had a question about the way in which lions walk and the way in which they place their feet down on the rims and then roll them down when they're stalking. And it was a very interesting observation. It's something I've mentioned or touched upon once or twice before, the way in which lions walk. Now, by putting their foot down, not flat down on the straightaway on the paw, but by utilizing the outside edge and rolling their foot down. And it doesn't have to be a slow movement, but it can be a fairly fast movement if they're walking, but they'll do it even at their normal walking speed. What they do is they roll with their foot down sideways, foot down sideways, foot down sideways. And it's quiet. It's one of the quietest ways it's one of the ways in which a lion and a leopard are adapted to moving through an area quietly. The same goes for their registering tracks and walking in single file. All of those are ways in which they increase their stealth mode. Robin, there you go, an answer to your observation. You were wondering about the way in which they walk. That is why they do what they do. And if you watch them, next time this pair gets up, have a closer look at when they put their feet down, and you'll actually see that they do it, particularly with the larger front foot. They do it regardless of the way in which they're walking, unless there's another obstacle, for example, a drainage line hill or something that they need extra traction for. It's almost the equivalent of us trying to walk really quietly on tiptoe, reducing the amount of surface area that comes into contact and can make a noise on the ground. Oh, goodness, there's some frantic racing around happening. Well done, Terry. Terry's got the answer to our question about the mystery tree. Terry, you're absolutely right. Combretum imberbe, or imberbe, depending on how you wish to pronounce it. I always mangle my Latin pronunciation. I remember my parents decrying the lack of Latin education during my time at school. But yes, it is a leadwood tree, related, very closely related to the bush willows. And what was a giveaway is the way in which the leaves grow, fairly upward facing, the slight discolor, the way...
So guys, we've just caught up with the wild dogs. They actually ran straight past us. We had to do a turnaround. And really exciting. Unfortunately, as I say, with all the rain, we might not be able to stick with them too long. And they're about to go into some soft areas and through some drainage lines, but we will try. There we go. Tax, I don't think I'm going to be able to stick with them. They're moving into the block between Rebecca's and Zoe's in quarantine. They're heading south now again. apparently I just got to report there's some more at the staff village. Okay, we're going to try keep with them. And we're just going to be very careful about where we drive. Where we are now, it's fine. It's on hard granite-y soils. But if we get anywhere near a seep line, we're going to have to stop and I'm afraid let them carry on. But for the moment, we're okay. They've gone right into that little segment of drainage systems. Oh dear. Yeah, I'm afraid we're not. Oh, maybe there's a little. There's a spot there. But I don't think we're going to be able to stick with them without doing damage. I've lost visual at the moment. I'm going to try stay with them. We're going to try catch up with it. While we do that, let's jump back on board with Jamie.
Whilst the wild dogs have an opportunity to scamper across and Brent tries to keep up with them, we're still with our lions. Now, in the next minute or so, I'm going to make a decision about whether or not I stay with these lions and we watch them mating one more time, or whether or not I should actually go and see if I can find the rest of the dogs. There's alarm calls around the staff village and around DRC, which is probably triggered by the presence of those wild dogs. And I want to just keep listening with half an ear to the Game Drive channel so that I know which way they are going. Can hear Brent talking frantically on the Game Drive channel. What shall we do? Shall we stay or shall we go and help them out? See if we can catch up. Of course, that part of me is very much itching. Nothing like seeing a wild dog. Shannon, yes, that seems to be something of a pattern, completely coincidental, of course. But somehow whenever I mention, not whenever, but a lot of the times I've mentioned wild dogs and we've just been coincidental enough that they've arrived on the property. It's like saying magic words. A little part of me says please, and the wild dogs seem to listen. Obviously, it is a complete coincidence. The only time it hasn't been is where I've mentioned them because we've heard reports of them on neighbouring properties, and I've guessed at where they might be or where they might decide to cross onto our property. But other than that, pure luck. And what a morning. Mating lions, wild dogs running about, a herd of elephants, lionesses hunting. An incredible way to start off a sunrise safari. The rain has cleared up. The skies are clear once again. Or not quite clear. Clear is a massive exaggeration. It has stopped raining, would maybe have been a better way to phrase that, and there is a hint of sun. The frogs are calling. I can hear foam nest frogs in the pan itself. There's a whole load of little water holes just on the other side of this thicket, and they are going quack, 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 quack. The foam nest frogs. A frog that is slightly white in colour. Our lions enjoying the nice opportunity for a early morning nap after their exertions of the last few days. I think our last look at the sleeping cats, and then it is time for us to go. And I think it is time for us to put our foot on the accelerator, not just yet, because we are right next to the lions. So we'll very gently put our foot onto the accelerator until we hit the road, and we'll go and see if we can't find and follow up on those dogs. And we shall do so in style. Farewell, mister. Have a good morning. Enjoy your last few hours with the lady. I think she's going to be done in the next day or so. Okay, it's going to be best here. I think it's just a turn around. All right, yay, wild dogs. I haven't seen wild dogs since I came back to work, so I'm very, very excited. In fact, the last wild dogs I saw was the Orpin pack when we were traveling through, where Andrew, Brent and myself were traveling through Kruger.
standing by. Watch heads, everyone. I nearly set that down the game drive channel.
As you're coming from the check with the SDN and Philemon's cutback.
Copy that, will do. I was thinking about making my way towards the DRC, but I'll check from there all the way up to quarantine.
Yeah, the reported dog was old from DRC, the same dogs that we were with, 3 adults.
Copy that, perfect, thank you.
Yeah, I can also check that route if you want to head somewhere else. I can also do the Philemon cutback.
Thanks, Mike. No problem. I've pulled out of the lion sighting. I'm on my way.
Right, copy.
Here we go. And whilst we switch into high range on the vehicle and race off in search of dogs, let's find out how Brent's search is going.
So those dogs disappeared into this really steep drainage system here. So we're just checking the edge of quarantine. And nothing, no luck so far. We've got other vehicles checking further to the south, so we're going to check this eastern section. That's the thing with wild dogs, they're so difficult to stay with, especially when they go into an area like that. So, ex-Ranger, appropriate day for a Ferrari safari as it's the first day of Formula One. I didn't know that, but thanks for that. I'm not a big Formula One fan unless I'm in the hot seat after the wild dogs. So we're going to move around and check down towards Philemon's dip and Philemon's cut line in case they did change direction in the block. That is not impossible. So there's 3 of us in search of the dogs at the moment. Taxon from Jeandre, and now myself, and now Jamie's going to come join us. So hopefully between the 3 of us we'll be able to find them again. That very short glimpse I got, I have no idea which pack it might be. If I had to hazard a guess, it would be the Investec breakaway pack, because 3 adults by themselves, that would sort of fall in line with the Investec pack. But then again, I could be completely wrong. It could be the Sabi Science pack that's lost each other during hunting. And speaking of that, we're just going to turn off the engine while we drift down the hill, and hopefully we might hear something. Now, with dogs, the animals don't really alarm call, so you don't hear all that barking and snorting like you do with lions and leopards. What we're actually listening for is if they've made a kill, they make a very high-pitched, sort of squeaky, bubbly sound. And the other thing is if they have lost each other while hunting, we're listening to their contact call, which is the woo call, and it sort of goes like this. Woo, 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 woo. But nothing so far, and it looks like it's going to turn into a beautiful day. Place we had them was about there, and they were heading this way. There's Jamie and Jeandre, and we're going to swap sides, which with wild dogs is a very good idea because you never know where they're going to go. Also just watching for tracks. See if they have crossed here. Oh no! They've done it again! They've looped around upon us. They're back in the exact same spot where we first saw them. So when that happens, normally what happens is that they've chased something, it's changed direction, and they've done the same. So hold on, guys. Don't fall off the couch. We're on our way back to where we've just come from. So this is Dave's initiation to wild dogs with Brent. So he's doing very well so far. He hasn't managed to hook himself on a bush or fall off just yet. Copy, I'm on my way back now. I'm on quarantine. So, since it's the first day of Formula One, I wonder if any of the scouts watching, maybe I have another profession in line later in life, driving for a Ferrari. Apparently I've been told I'm way too big to fit in an F1 car. That's quite disappointing. Strangely enough, speaking of F1 cars, a friend of mine from Cape Town has just signed to drive for Ferrari in the endurance segment. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but very happy for him. We all used to tease him while he was driving go-karts and racing go-karts, but he's obviously taken that go-kart racing to the next level. He now has a monstrous engine in front of him, and he's been racing for about as long as I've known him. Actually, probably longer than I've known him. From little now all the way up to Ferraris. So you guys, just need to listen to the Jeandre radio. This is deja vu, Dave. We've just come from here. Oh no! They're on the move again and going back to where we've just come from on the other side. So I'm going to shoot past. William's trying to stay with them. And for those of you wondering, William is Aubrey's tracker. He was just stuffing some staff through from the gate when he spotted them, and he's kindly stayed out to help us try find them. Okay. They've changed direction again. They were going south, now they're going north. I'm just going to get hold of Jamie. Tell her to go stand by in quarantine.
Quarantine junction. Keeping the head up the side for the area.
Let's keep our eyes open, Dave. They could literally appear anywhere. Jamie.
Go ahead.
Jamie, I think it might be worthwhile just standing by in quarantine somewhere.
Okay, sir, that's what I'm doing. I'm just looping the area quickly to check, and then I'm going to step in the middle.
Thanks. William, I'm on that small trailer that runs down to the western side of quarantine. Whereabouts are you?
Stop there. I just the direction heading west, northwest. Okay.
They've changed direction again. Now heading back towards where we are. So we're gonna stay out and stop here. See if we can hear William's car. There. So he says they're coming northwest, and we're pretty much bang on northwest at the moment.
William, we think they might come out again on that small open area or wherever.
So guys, I just need to listen to this. Quarantine. So it looks like they're heading towards Jamie. So we're going to try to get there. We're not going to go too fast in case they change their mind again. So while we do that, let's jump on board with Jamie in case they pop out in front of her.
Just give me 1 second. Negative, Mike. I don't have visual. I'm just standing by here. Sorry, Mike was trying to contact me. He thought I'd seen them. There's absolute chaos. Dogs are running in every direction. And I think we're just going to sit and wait on quarantine. At the moment, it sounds like if they pick a direction and go in it, it sounds like they might pop out here. I'm just going to stand by and wait and see. This is a nice open spot. We should be able to see them fairly easily. I also wanted to take the opportunity to listen for the sound of the vehicle that is with them and see if I can't get a better idea of their position. Where did Mike go? He's going. I'm just checking to see which way he's heading off. I don't know if he's got... No, I think he's just going to go in the middle of the clearing. Absolutely, Safari Dean. We need a dirt bike to keep up with these wild dogs. Northwest. That's not towards quarantine at all. They keep changing their mind. Safari Dean, absolutely. And I would say that would be wonderful if it were not for the risk of both elephants and lions chasing you. Elephants don't, for some reason, like motorbikes or dirt bikes. I can hear Brent doing a U-turn. There he is. Off he drives.
Yeah, William,
I actually know somebody. Sorry, this mad rush to try and catch up with the wild dogs. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go take Brent's place there, closer to the western edge of quarantine, so that if they do change their minds, we will be in prime position to see them pop out. While I do that, I actually know somebody who used to work on anti-poaching patrols on a motorbike. And he came around the corner one day and a pride of lions was sitting right next to the road, and he tried to speed past them. And one of the lionesses jumped onto his back. And luckily he was wearing a backpack, so she pulled the backpack off him and he was able to drive away unscathed. But there's something about human beings on bikes that changes the way in which animals perceive us. It's like they're running away. For elephants, it's the noise. They don't like it. But for lions, it's almost like a prey drive. It's the same reason why we always say don't run from animals. I need to turn this back up again. Sorry. I need to listen to updates.
I am straight into the middle of quarantine. Everything, I'm here, sort of station forward. They were dancing place north.
That's about as clear as mud. That's where they're going to go. Sounds as though William has lost them. I'm just looking at the monkeys sitting in the top of the tree. Maybe they might have a better idea than we do. They've got a far better chance of working this out from their lofty perspective high above the clearing. Brent's got his standby position. We should pick our standby position, which I think will be the west, in the middle of the western edge of quarantine. Monkeys will alarm call for wild dogs. They're probably not in this area.
making us run everywhere. Cheers, guys. Heather is staying up past her bedtime to participate in our wild dog search. Heather, I'm glad to hear it. I'm sorry it is past your bedtime. Those time differences are a bit of a tricky situation out here and for you guys. But Heather, I hope, fingers crossed, we should, between the two, well, actually between about the 6 of us racing around, but one of us should find them. It's trickier. The smaller the group of wild dogs, the harder it gets. I don't want to accelerate too fast through these muddy patches on the road. All right, everybody keep your eyes peeled for the flash of white spots. Safari Dean has said that he's happy that the wild dogs have come along to distract us and left the lions with a little bit of privacy to continue on with whatever it is they want to do, which I think is hunt at this point. Oh, Wendy. Keep forgetting. Sorry, girl. It's very close to a stall. Safari Dean, absolutely. We shall leave them to their moment. They'll probably go wandering. I still think it's cool enough for that female to want to push more for the possibility of food. They're both looking very hungry. Come to think of it, actually, that's a feeling that I sympathize with. Also feeling fairly hungry. The wild dog chase is all-encompassing. Really carefully. Wild dogs pounding in every direction. Everybody hang on to your seats. Oh, gotta be careful, otherwise we're gonna start power sliding around corners. I smell a musk bull. It's amazing how pervasive that scent is, especially in the damp. All I can smell is that elephant, that musk bull with the piercing in his ear. He's actually done some significant damage to the trees in quarantine. That, I think, was him. Oh no, actually that must be older than that because there's branches growing upright.
Try and find them as well.
I'll just sit here for a moment. Let's see if they decide to pop out here. And while we sit and wait, let's find out how Brent's search is going.
William?
So we're sitting here in Zoe's, on the junction of Zoe's Road and a little track that heads up from quarantine. The last visual of them was probably about 300 meters to the south of us. And we're just sitting here quietly waiting, hoping that they pop out. Oh, interesting. Let's go have a look. I just heard from the tracks, apparently, William says it looks like there's lots of tracks on Gallagher Shortcut. Now, it looks like they might have left the babies there, or the youngsters, so that's probably leaning towards the Investec breakaways. Interesting enough, everything seems to be happening on Gallagher Shortcut. That's where we first found the lions this morning as well. So we're going to go on a little bit of a wider arc. There's a couple of vehicles still in this area. So we're going to head back towards the Gallagher Shortcut. Sorry, guys. So it sounds like Tax has got some tracks to them. So they must have managed to sneak between us. Literally, we've got vehicles stationed all around here, but they are so fast. a morning so far, guys. Sure. Exciting stuff. Mating lions, wonderful ellies, and just the slightest glimpse of a wild dog, which is enough to get my tail wagging. So it looks like they actually literally crossed, bisected between where Jamie and I were waiting. So guys, location's really so there's another vehicle waiting, standing by here. I'm gonna swing around. Morning, everyone. Are you gonna phone back to Chilukatla? I mean, Gallagher. I'll go. Okay. And then we've still got one more of us standing by in quarantine in case they jigger again. Ephraim's also joined the hunt for the African wild dog. Exciting stuff, but as far as most of you guys out there know, my favorite animal by far. Okay, we got to jump across to Jamie really, really quickly. She's spotted them.
Here we go. We've been doing a mad search. I just took a guess on where they might go because I know this pack quite well. They tend to move this in this sort of really fairly regular pathway. Please don't go in here, ladies and gentlemen. Come on, boys and girls. Stop here. Awesome. They're going to come past. There we go, looking very mucky. This is a very difficult block to follow them into. And they're still on the hunt.
Jamie.
Standing by.
I confirm you still got visual.
That's affirmative. There are animals on mobile southeast.
Confirm exact location again.
Brent, it's just past the Zoe's Road junction towards Aubrey's Road. It's probably about halfway between those two roads on main access.
Okay, copy. Tax and Ephraim are coming to you, so I'm going to move up.
Copy that. They are with us now. Awesome. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that I can count. 6 that I can count. Under which pack this is. Here we go. Into the middle of the road. And I better make some space, everybody. Oh, I've got to wait for a sec.
No, boy, just as long as
so
we've got
excited.
one more,
Oh, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Yeah, there were people here with him.
Here we go. Here comes the whole pack, right past the car. Isn't this incredible? Look at how large the pups are. I'm going to move so that the other guys have space.
Copy that.
Playing in the road in front of us. This is so exciting. Jackson's giving me leave to go ahead of him, very kindly. Ah, there's such awesome tracks, but we can't stop to look at them now. We'll have to come back and look at them later. Wonderful tracks in the mud. They are heading towards our western edge, our western traverse area. So there is a chance that they might cross. But for now, we've got a brilliant, stunning view of them. Trying to make as much space as I can for the other vehicles coming up behind me.
Okay.
There you go, Hope Community. You were wondering about what wild dogs look like, and we've got a perfect answer for you. This is what wild dogs look like, also known as a painted dog or a painted wolf. Hello, old boy. This is one of the adults of the pack, adult males, with scruffy tattered ears and blood all over his face. There you go, that's probably from a previous kill. Of course, wild dogs can kill 3 or 4 times in a morning like this, depending on what they manage to encounter. I'm going to let Taxon go ahead, just so that his guests have an opportunity to view them as well. We'll catch up with them very quickly. Awesome. I'm so glad. I just took a lucky guess as to where those wild dogs might pop out, and it worked out perfectly. Yay, yes. Stay with us. Stay with us, pups. Sorry, guys. Go back a little bit. There, can you see? Perfect. Look at them lying in a puddle. That's why they're all so muddy, taking the opportunity to cool down by plopping into the mud. How big have these pups got? It's incredible. Look at all those big ears. So yes, this is what a wild dog looks like, also known as a painted dog or the painted wolf of Africa. And with that spotty patterns and colours and the dots of the white tail, you can see why that name is so appropriate. And they are essentially the equivalent of a wolf in South Africa. They fill the same ecological niche, but actually very similar structure in terms of their social dynamics. An alpha female and an alpha male that are the main breeding pair. Look at them racing with those white tufty tails down the road. Awesome. Just let Tax go. Imagine being a guest on the back of one of these vehicles. They must be so excited. Where did they go? They went this way. No, man. Imagine being a poor camera operator on the back of ours. You got some here. Where'd they go?
They crossed here.
That's incredible. That happened so fast. They must be in the open area. There was a reason that the vehicle in front of me has stopped. Yeah. Jeandre is just helping me by keeping an eagle eye out. Opa, how's it? Did the Madash come here? Oh. Thank you. Opa says no. They did not come past. Opa, of course, being our brilliant mechanic. Just hilarious. Stations, I've lost visual of these Madach. They were heading west into the block towards Impala Road from where Terrapin access. sliding around the corners. Got to keep your eyes peeled. I'm just going to pull off and let Ephraim go past and just wait and see. Oh, F thinks they're further ahead. I'm not entirely sure. I think it looked as though they might want to come in this direction. I'm just going to stand by here. There's no point in all of us racing off in to the same place. Cheers.
You're from out west, isn't it, babe?
Oh, there they are. Oh, they're going right towards the boundary.
What?
Go, Wendy, go. Woohoo!
William, yeah?
Hello, dogs. Awesome. There they go. Racing through. Our boundary with Arethusa falls just to the north of the power lines, which is exactly where it looks like they're going to cross. Looks as though they might go on to Simbabili. We'll try and stick with them for as long as possible. They're going to pop out at Triple M. Let's try and get a clearer view that side, rather than following them through here. How awesome is this? Jeandre bouncing about on the back. Sorry, Jeandre. Doing a fantastic job, as all the cameramen do, of managing to stay on the back with us. Dogs running after. Are they playing? I think they might be playing.
Keep playing them along there and across that.
Here come the rest of the pack. They're going to come through into the open area, I think. It's incredible. I cannot believe how big these pups have got. When we first started seeing them until now, it's basically indistinguishable from the adults. Now, guys, we are going to be extending the show until we either have to leave the sighting because they are going onto a main road, or until they cross a boundary, we lose them. But we'll be staying with them for as long as possible. Here comes the straggler. Cheers. We'll go on to Triple M, which means that there will be other vehicles that will want to make their way in, but we're going to stick with them for as long as possible. Which way are they going to go? Are we going to go north, or are we going to go... As though they're going to go north. Make some space for Mike here. Hello, Doug. We've actually now got 4 vehicles in the sighting. One of us is going to have to leave. This is what happens on a main access road, and since we have been with them for the longest period of time, it will be us that will have to leave the sighting. So generally, our restrictions are based to 3 vehicles per sighting. It sometimes gets a bit confused on a main road like this. So I'm going to take one last lovely look at our beautiful wild dogs. And then we're going to pull out of the sighting What a stunning, stunning view. This is such a beautiful girl that's going to walk across in front of us. Beautiful. Oh, a thrilling morning. We're going to give the other vehicles an opportunity to view these wild dogs now, so we'll pull out. And thus it brings us to the end of a very, very exciting sunrise safari. I'm going to say thank you on behalf of Brent as well, to Brent and Dave, and thank you, Jeandre, and thank you to all the ladies in Final Control, and to, most importantly, to our wonderful viewers. I hope you have loved the sunrise safari. I certainly have. We will catch up with you on the sunset safari. Hopefully these wild dogs will still be around. Exciting prospects. Have a wonderful day wherever you are, and we'll catch up with you then.